ever hit that wall where movie dialogue just blurs into one incomprehensible rush? Or maybe, in class you follow everything perfectly, but then try chatting with a native English speaker and it feels like they're speaking a totally different dialect.
Happens all the time.
It's a seriously common headache, honestly. And today, well, we're cracking the code.
Exactly. And we've got a fantastic tool right here, a YouTube transcript that's specifically focused on this exact challenge. Understanding fast English.
Yeah.
Think of this as like your backstage pass to those rapid-fire conversations. We're going to really dig into these examples, pull up the practical insights that can, genuinely boost your listening skills.
Our mission today is pretty laser-focused. We want you to get a real handle on why fast English speakers can be so tricky to follow.
All right.
We're not just going to scratch the surface here. We're going to look at specific examples, pinpoint those sneaky pronunciation changes.
Yeah, those little shifts.
And equip you with strategies you can actually use. Get ready for some, well, hopefully some light bulb moments.
And the way we'll do this is pretty straightforward. We'll take the examples directly from the transcript and show you what's actually happening with the sounds. But maybe more importantly, we'll explain what these phrases actually mean and, how they're used in everyday talk.
All right, let's dive straight in then. The very first sentence we're looking at is, keep your eyes peeled for the street. Now, while the words themselves seem simple enough, the way they often sound when spoken quickly can be quite different, can't it?
Oh, absolutely. What's fascinating here is how the sounds sort of melt together.
Yeah.
Take your eyes.
Yeah.
That your often becomes really soft, almost like a quick your,
Yeah. Right.
And it naturally connects the eyes with that R sound. It could almost sound like one word.
Your eyes.
Your eyes.
Yeah, and understanding this kind of flow helps you anticipate the next word instead of hearing two completely distinct sounds. That's a great point about anticipating. You really do hear that RR acting like a bridge between them.
Exactly.
And then we have peeled, that ed ending. How does that change?
Well, it often softens to just a D sound, peeled.
Peeled, okay.
It's subtle, sure,
Yeah.
but it definitely contributes to that feeling of speed.
It does, and that little word for.
Ah, yes, for.
Yeah.
It's a prime example of an unstressed sound in English.
Okay.
It frequently gets reduced to just a simple fur, especially in the middle of a sentence.
Fur, like F-U-R.
Exactly like that. So you might hear, keep your eyes peeled for the street.
Wow, okay.
Recognizing these unstressed forms is just key to catching the main information, the important words.
And finally, street, you definitely hear that strong R sound there. Street.
Clear R sound.
So if you put it all together, it can sound less like separate words and more like this continuous stream. Keep your eyes peeled for the street.
Exactly. And if we zoom out a little, you start to see this pattern everywhere in fast-spoken English.
Right.
These unstressed syllables, those linked sounds. It's a major reason why what you hear can sound so different from what you might see written down.
Yeah.
Mastering this, or at least becoming aware of it, helps your brain process the sound much more efficiently.
Okay, now let's talk about what we're actually being told to do here. Keep your eyes peeled. It's a fantastic idiom. What's the underlying meaning?
Well, this brings up an interesting point about how native speakers often use these kinds of colorful expressions, to communicate more efficiently. Keep your eyes peeled basically means stay alert and watch carefully.
Stay alert, watch carefully.
Okay, just a more engaging way of saying be careful or pay attention.
And this idiom isn't just for streets, is it? The transcript gives examples like, keep your eyes peeled for the client.
Exactly. You're telling someone to be specifically on the lookout for the client.
Right.
You can use for, followed by pretty much anything you want someone to watch out for. For instance, keep your eyes peeled for any opportunities to practice your English.
That's a good one.
Yeah. It's a concise way of saying, be alert for chances to improve. Using and understanding idioms like this really connects you to a more nuanced level of English.
The transcript also mentions that keep your eyes peeled is in the imperative form. What does that tell us about how it functions?
Okay, so the imperative form. Think of it as the doing form of a verb. It's used for giving direct instructions or commands.
Like an order.
Sort of, yeah. It's like saying, you need to keep your eyes peeled, but without actually saying the you.
Oh.
It's direct. But it's not necessarily impolite. It really depends on the context and your tone of voice.
Gotcha. And the verb keep changes depending on who's doing the keeping, right? We need to think about conjugation. The transcript gives the example, she kept her eyes peeled.
That's right. The past simple tense of keep is kept, K-E-P-T.
Kept.
And as this example shows, it's really important to match the possessive pronoun like her to the subject she. If it were I, you'd say, I kept my eyes peeled. These little grammatical points are actually crucial for accurate communication.
True. There's also a more general usage mentioned. If you're ever in the neighborhood, keep your eyes peeled.
Exactly. So it's a nice way to offer a friendly suggestion to just be observant, pay attention.
Kind of a casual heads up.
Precisely. It adds a casual, helpful hint to pay attention to their surroundings if they happen to be in that area.
All right, let's move on to our next example. Are we still on for tonight? This is a question I'm pretty sure many of us have used, or at least heard, when confirming plans.
Oh yeah, super common. What's interesting from a sound perspective here is how still and on often link together.
How so?
Well, that L sound at the end of still tends to just flow right into the vowel sound of on.
Yeah.
It can almost sound like still on.
Still on. Yeah, I can hear that blurring.
Recognizing those links helps you hear one continuous phrase rather than two separate words chopping things up.
Okay. And there's our friend for again, probably sounding like fur, right? Are we still on fur tonight?
You got it. It's amazing how often that little word gets reduced. It really is.
And then consider the stress in tonight. Where does that fall?
It's unstressed on the first syllable, to, and stressed on the second, night. So, tonight.
Tonight.
This unstressed stress pattern is incredibly common in two-syllable English words. Worth listening out for.
Definitely. So what exactly are we trying to find out when we ask, are we still on for tonight? What's the function?
This is basically a way to double-check existing plans, usually not too far in advance, maybe the day of or perhaps the day before.
Right, just confirming.
Yeah, it's a polite way of just making sure everyone remembers and that nothing has changed unexpectedly.
The transcript gives some useful variations too. We can swap out tonight for other times like lunch or lunch today, this afternoon, or tomorrow. So are we still on for lunch tomorrow? Works perfectly well.
Exactly, and you could even specify what the on refers to, like, are we still on for studying English tomorrow? It's a really flexible little phrase, very useful.
It is. And what kind of responses might you get if you ask, are we still on for tonight?
Oh, well, you might get something casual and enthusiastic, like, yep, can't wait.
Okay.
Or maybe a more specific and firm reply, like, absolutely, see you at 7 p.m.
Right.
The level of detail in the reply can often tell you how definite the plans really are.
Good point. Okay, next up we have, is the museum walkable? This introduces a really useful word for navigating new places.
Yeah, walkable. Looking at the sounds first, museum has that voice Z sound in the middle. Muse, E-E.
Use got it.
And it's 3 syllables. Walkable is also 3 syllables.
Right.
But the emphasis, the stress, is right at the beginning on walk. So walkable.
Walkable, not walka-eachable.
Exactly. And notice that last sound more like a soft bool than a really clear able.
Bool. Huh.
Focusing on that stressed syllable, the walk, helps you understand the word even if the unstressed parts are a little, mumbled.
That makes sense. So if something is walkable, what does that actually mean in practical terms?
Walkable means that a place is close enough to reach comfortably by walking.
Comfortably, okay.
So is the museum walkable? Is really asking, can we get to the museum easily on foot without it being too much of a tiring journey? Is it reasonable to walk?
The transcript gives a great example of how you might use this. Are we still on for lunch today? Absolutely, but I only have 30 minutes. What's walkable?
Yeah, perfect example.
So it's about finding something nearby when time is limited.
No.
Very practical.
Precisely. And you can also use it in the negative, of course. A new Thai restaurant opened last week, but I don't think it's walkable from here.
Right.
The not clearly indicates it's probably too far to walk comfortably.
Interestingly, walkable can also describe entire areas, right? Like neighborhoods or even whole cities.
That's right. When we say something like one of the great things about New York City is how walkable it is, what we mean is it's easy to get around on foot. Many people who live there might not even need a car because so much is within walking distance. This whole idea of walkability ties into broader discussions about, how cities are designed and how easy they are to navigate for pedestrians.
The transcript even touches on a slightly different angle, mentioning that some urban planners might critique areas as not walkable.
Yes.
So in that context, it can have a bit of a negative meaning, like a criticism.
Exactly. In city planning circles, saying an area is not walkable can suggest a lack of pedestrian-friendly infrastructure. Maybe not enough sidewalks, poor crossings, things like that. and that can impact residents' quality of life.
Fascinating. Okay, let's move on to let's head out early to beat the traffic. This sentence features a really common phrasal verb, head out.
Yes, head out. Pronunciation-wise, it often flows together. The D sound at the end of head connects to the vowel in out, sometimes sounding almost like head out or even head out.
Head out.
The R in early is a longer sound, early. Early.
Right.
And that little to before beat becomes unstressed, just a quick ta.
To beat.
And the vowel in traffic tends to be more prominent than the R sound, traffic, not traffic.
Traffic.
And just a fun fact, beat in beat the traffic sounds exactly the same as the vegetable beet, B-E-E-T.
Huh, never thought of that. So what does this phrasal verb to head out actually mean? It's one you hear all the time, like the transcript points out.
Yeah, it's super common. To head out simply means to leave a place or to start a journey.
So, like, leave.
Pretty much. Instead of asking, what time are you leaving? Someone might very naturally say, what time are you heading out?
Okay.
It's just a staple of everyday spoken English. Really natural.
And the transcript gives examples of how you might reply, like, I'm heading out around 6:30 a.m., using the present continuous tense there.
Correct.
Now, what about the second part of the sentence, to beat the traffic? What's that doing there?
That's what we call a purpose clause. It explains why you're doing the action.
The purpose.
It's basically a shortened way of saying, in order to beat the traffic.
Ah, I see.
Native speakers often drop the in order part and just use to, followed by the verb to explain the reason. So, let's head out early to beat the traffic means let's leave early so that we can avoid the traffic.
Okay, that makes sense. Understanding the why.
Exactly. Recognizing these purpose clauses really helps you understand the speaker's intentions.
It's interesting that the transcript mentions native speakers often start sentences with a purpose clause. Can you give us an example of that structure?
Sure. So instead of saying, let's head out at 6:30 a.m. to beat the traffic, you might hear it flipped around. To beat the traffic, let's head out at 6:30 a.m.
Ah, okay, same meaning.
Identical meaning, yeah. Just a slightly different emphasis, putting the reason first.
And it contrasts that with using the ing form of the verb, the gerund, for more general statements like, beating the traffic in this city is always a challenge.
Exactly right. So the to beat form has a specific immediate goal in mind for this action, whereas beating, the gerund, is talking about the act of beating traffic more generally.
Got it. And just to clarify, to beat the traffic means to avoid it, right? Or get ahead of it.
Yeah, basically to avoid the worst of it, or to leave early enough so you don't get stuck in all the congestion.
Okay.
And the transcript provides other examples of how head out can be used, like let's head out to the park. Just means let's go to the park.
Very versatile. All right, our final example for this deep dive is, I tried to get a little shut-eye on the break. This one introduces a more informal way to talk about sleep.
Shut-eye. Pronunciation-wise, to get a little often merges together quite a bit in fast speech.
How so?
That to becomes an unstressed tuh, as we've seen, and it blends with ghetto, sometimes sounding almost like kukidetto.
Tukida. Wow.
And then little. The to sound in little is often pronounced as a softer D, like little.
Little.
And some speakers might even reduce it further, maybe to something like little.
Little. Okay.
And similarly, the to in shut-eye can also become a soft D sound, shut-eye.
Shut-eye.
Yeah. These subtle softenings of sounds really contribute to the speed and the casualness of the speech.
So what exactly does shut-eye mean? It doesn't sound very formal.
No, definitely not formal. Shut-eye is a noun, and it's a casual, informal way of saying sleep. Particularly like a short period of sleep or maybe a nap.
Okay.
A nap. So I tried to get a little shut-eye. Basically means I tried to get a little sleep or I tried to have a quick nap.
Right.
Using informal language like this, when it's appropriate, can make your English sound more natural in everyday conversation.
The transcript gives examples like, he managed to get some shut-eye on the plane. So, in many informal situations, it's pretty interchangeable with sleep.
Pretty much, yeah, in casual contexts.
What about the on the break part? Why on?
Good question. The preposition on here means during.
Ah, during.
So on the break is the same as saying during my break or during a break. You might also hear someone say, check my emails on my lunch break. Same idea.
Got it. And while shut-eye sounds pretty laid back and casual, the transcript mentions some, pretty surprising consequences of not getting enough sleep. It gets serious fast.
That's absolutely right. While the term itself is informal, the actual need for shut-eye, for sleep, is incredibly serious for our health.
How so?
Well, research suggests that consistently not getting enough sleep can actually accelerate aging,
Wow.
disrupt your hormone balance, increase your susceptibility to illness, and, in very extreme rare cases, it can even be fatal. Lack of sleep.
Fatal. Goodness.
Yeah, and this is where that idea of beauty rest comes from. Getting enough sleep has a real, tangible impact on our well-being and even our appearance.
So it's not just a saying.
Not at all. It's a good reminder, I think, that even casual terms like shut-eye can point to really fundamental human needs.
Wow, that definitely makes you think twice about pulling an all-nighter.
It really does.
Yep.
It highlights how even seemingly simple, informal language could be connected to some really important aspects of our lives and health.
Okay, let's quickly recap what we've explored in this deep dive then. We've taken a really close look at several examples of fast English and pinpointed how those pronunciation changes, like linking words together and those unstressed sounds, can really make it sound different from how it looks on paper.
Exactly. And we've also emphasized the importance of understanding common idioms and phrasal verbs, things like keep your eyes peeled and head out. They're just essential for navigating everyday English conversations.
So the key takeaway for you listening right now is to actively train your ear. Train it to listen for these patterns in real-world English.
Yeah, start noticing.
Start noticing how words connect, how some sounds soften or even seem to disappear sometimes, and how the context, the situation can often help you decipher unfamiliar phrases.
And this leads us to maybe a final thought for you to consider. How do these subtle shifts in pronunciation and the use of idiomatic expressions, how do they contribute not just to the literal meaning of what's being said, but also to the overall feel and the cultural understanding within native English conversations?
That's interesting.
Because mastering these elements isn't just about pure comprehension, is it? It's maybe about connecting more deeply with the language and, well, the people who use it every day.
Connecting more deeply, I like that. So, as you continue your English learning journey, keep your ears tuned, keep observing these fascinating aspects of spoken English, and keep exploring.
Absolutely.
You've taken a fantastic deep dive with us today.